Hey everyone, thank you for joining me. I'm a guy called Joe and this is Bootstrapping Tools. In this video, we're going to be talking about Google Data Studio and Google Cloud SQL, basically using Cloud SQL as a way to power your dashboards and reports in Google Data Studio. Now, if you haven't used Data Studio before, it's essentially a business intelligence tool, or BI tool for short. And what it allows you to do is to create beautiful reports with charts and graphs and pie charts or tables or wherever you want, and base that all completely off of large data sets. So you can use spreadsheets if you want. They have special connectors to YouTube Analytics, Google Analytics, Search Console, Google Ads, 360 surveys, anything essentially that you might want to connect to. It also connects to databases, which is what we're actually going to dive into today. Now, if you haven't used it before, we do have a guide on bootstrapping.tools. It is a very simple one just to get you up and running. It'll show you how you can connect to a data source, and then from that data source, how you can create your first report, add in a chart, a table, a graph, and I'll just walk you step by step on how to customize each thing. But if you're interested, please take a look into the description. We'll leave a link for anybody who wants to use this before they dive a little deeper into this video. So, last time we spoke about how you can create data sources for Google Sheets, which we use for our Pokemon list. In some previous videos that we did, we also connected to Search Console and YouTube Analytics, as well as Search Analytics and Google Analytics. And then we also went into Google Cloud Storage, which allowed us to take a larger data set. Our Pokemon data set was less than a megabyte. There was only about 700 rows, but our COVID-19 data set had thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of rows, and that amounted to over the amount that you can import into Google Sheets. Today, we're actually going to use an even larger data set. The COVID-19 was about 22, 23 megabytes. Our new data set today is actually going to be the New York City restaurant inspection results, and this is 152 megabytes. So we have this already uploaded into Google Cloud Storage. I want to show you real quick what happens when you try to upload something that is over 100 megabytes using Data Studio. I mentioned in the other video that it's actually impossible. It'll throw an error. So here, let's quick review. Click into your data set, and you click on the copy icon. That's going to copy the path to that file over to your clipboard. Go back to the data source, and then paste that in, and then hit enter. And what's going to happen is Data Studio is going to say, hey, this is over 100 megabytes. You can't use a file that is over 100 megabytes when it comes to Google Cloud Storage. So what we're actually going to do instead of connecting to there, we're going to use Google Cloud. And this, just a real note thing, it depends on the type of database that you set up on Google Cloud SQL. I am actually setting up a Postgres database, PostgreSQL, which is this guy over here, instead of the MySQL. In another video, I'll show you how to use the MySQL one, but for this, I'm going to show you Postgres. Postgres has been very popular. It's like what all the new kids use. But essentially, what you want to do is you want to come over here, and then you want to add in your host name, your port, which is actually, you can leave that blank, your database, and then your username and password. Before we do that, let's actually go over to the Google Cloud Platform, GCP, and then go into SQL. So you can select SQL off the navigation on the side. Once you select that, it's gonna ask you to create an instance. We created an instance here already. It's called Bootstrapping Sample Data. And essentially it's going to ask you for a bunch of configuration stuff. We'll go over the exact setup in another video. If you're interested, please drop a comment in the section below. Tell us what you'd like to actually see, and we'll make sure to make a video specifically about setting up your own SQL database on Google Cloud. But for this one, we set up a very basic, the minimum storage capabilities, 10 gigabytes, so one CPU. It's all shared. That way we can minimize the cost. Budget is really important to all you entrepreneurs out there. And once you have it all set up, you're going to go over to connect to this instance, the public IP address. You're going to take that, and then you're going to go over there, put the host name in. The database usually defaults to having Postgres be the database name. Really up to you. It also defaults the first user is Postgres, and then the password is whatever you set it to. Once you authenticate that, you're gonna be able to dive in, and then it's gonna give you the two tables that you have. I put in the COVID-19 back then, and then this is the restaurant inspections one that we actually want to do. And before we connect it, I just want to show you real quick. It is a rather large data set. We already talked about how it's 152 megabytes, just to show you, to make sure everybody can see what's going on here. Let's go ahead and connect to that database. So I clicked on the icon up above, which is Google Cloud Shell. If you click on that little command line, is going to enter in here. The commands are really simple. I'll just follow along. That's gcloud SQL, and you're going to type in connect. So very verbose, right? It makes sense logically when you're talking about it. The next thing you're going to add in here is the name of your instance. So for us, it's bootstrapping sample data with the hyphens. And then after that, you're going to do -- user equals. And we were talking about the Postgres user before. You hit enter, and that's going to open up the connection and start connecting to it. While that's going, I actually want to show you underneath the users. You can create multiple users for yourself if you want to. You can change the password if you want to. It's really up to you. And then under connections, you want to make sure that you also include the Google Data Studio IP addresses, just to whitelist all of those. And then of course whitelist your own as well if you wanted to do that. But so it's going to give you the information, and then this is now done. We're going to type in our password and connect, and now we're connected. Once you're in here, a simple command to see all of your tables is \D, and then hit enter. And this is going to show you, the tables that you have within your database or your instance. If you do \D with the plus symbol, it's going to give you a little bit more information. So we can see here that 170 megabytes. So after we took that file and then we put it in, and we gave it whatever we needed, it allocated 170 megabytes worth of space to it. So that's just to prove we're working with a fairly large data set. And if we go back over to our data studio data source over here, we have NYC restaurant inspection selected. We're going to click on the connect button, and then it's just going to go through. It's going to authenticate with the credentials that we have, pull up the data, and then it's going to read through everything and tell us what the different fields are within it. And then from there, we can start to adjust the same way that we did for all of the other data sources that we have. We can add in new fields if we want to. We can adjust what the fields look like. So we have a bunch of text. We have a date, city. This actually critical flag. I don't think it is a city. I think we'll change that back to a text, which is fine. The grade is also not a city. I believe that's a text. And just make sure whenever you import data that you take a look at everything and make sure that it is set up correctly. So community board, also not a date, it is a text. I think action, that looks good. Borough, track, critical flag, the phone number, we can leave that as a text, I guess. Violation description, violation code, text, yeah, that's fine. We can probably just leave it like this for now. Let's not call this. Make sure you name your data sets properly. So we're going to call this NYC restaurant inspections, and that's your new data source. And just like before, let's go ahead and explore it and make sure that when we connect the data studio, the data that is being returned is what we expect it to be. So Canvas, don't know exactly what Canvas is. That just comes in the data set. But you know what I do know? I do know Borough. Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, Bronx, Staten Island. And I guess in the data set we have a couple of bad data. This is taken from NYC Open Data. Of course, you can't expect that it's always going to be exactly correct or the best data possible. So let's take a look at the grade, maybe the score. You can start to see, all the different things here. So 12 A scores, null scores. Let's add in another chart here. Maybe what we can see is by borough, what are all the grades? So we do dimension is borough, score is that. Instead of score, let's do grade, because that's a little bit easier for us to read. And then we can see a lot of nulls, so maybe a lot of people are still under inspection, but Manhattan's got a lot of A's. They give it a lot of A's, it seems. Doesn't seem like there's too many B's, and then not too many C's, and then, oh man, there's a couple of Z's. Oof. That's frightening. Huh? How do you even get a Z? But Anyhow, here, let me save this actually. MIC restaurants inspections. Okay, I'm gonna save that. And then that's basically it. If you do have trouble adding in a database, what I actually suggest is there's this cool, neat little tool called wtools.io, and you can generate a SQL statement for you to just directly plug into your command line so that you can create it. So over here, there's a nice UI. You can add in each field, select the type of field it is, and then it's going to spit out a line of text that you can just like take this, copy it, and then go over to your command line and just like paste it in and then hit enter. So I'm not going to do that here because I already did it. But essentially, once you do that, you go back over to your overview, hit the import button, and then you're gonna, you can select from your Google Cloud Storage file, which is what I did just before. To open data, selected that, and then you select CSV, and you can pick your database and then enter in the table that you want to enter it into, which would be, that table name that you added up over here. But essentially, once you do that, it's going to process and then enter in all the data. You could also have a SQL file if you have one. It really depends on how you want to do it. If you did a SQL, file, it's going to look, basically like code like this, create table, and then you're going to have to enter things like, I think it's like upsert or insert or something like that. And there's like a bunch of code that you have to write. So if you're like me and you're not too familiar with SQL code itself, then I'd say just go ahead and use the CSV file. Use this tool to create the statement, to create the table, and then go back here, upload the CSV, input the table name, and just hit the import button, and then it'll just import everything. That's how I did for this data set, which we can see we're already being able to visualize the data sets quite well. So really up to you how you want to do it. But there's a lot of ways to slice it, but the important part is that you can take your larger data sets and showcase it in Data Studio in the way that you expect. So if you do run into any issues, feel free to drop a comment in the section below. And if you liked this tutorial, this guide, please hit the like button so that other people just like yourself who's trying to visualize and create reports on top of large data sets can do the same thing and learn from this video just like you did. And we're always going to be putting out more videos around this topic as well as other topics. We talked about Retool, maybe we'll do some app sheets. There's some new stuff called React Studio, which I think you guys would like. We'll obviously do more and more Data Studio. It seems like a lot of people like the Data Studio topic. So hit the subscribe button and the bell. Make sure you get notified once we release the next video. And of course, any feedback is welcome. Drop it in the comments and hit that like button. But that's it for this video. I'm a guy called Joe. This is Bootstrapping Tools, and we're out.